For real, right now it's still in Cancer, correct? Isn't that right, Ash?
Oh, I don't ask me. I'm terrible with astrology and stuff and
Okay.
things.
Yeah.
Does
Well, except
someone know about that?
yeah, the Lionsgate starts the first time that what is it Jupiter goes into the constellation of Leo, which happens on the 22nd.
Right.
People like to associate it with 8/8 because that's common for that time, but
Yeah. And that's a portal, right? I've seen a lot of people posting that there's a Lionsgate portal, but I don't really know what it means, you know?
But for
well,
the
it's not.
majority of people, they consider that it already happened.
Yes.
Right.
And so Ray has a very important point. Really, they're referencing it to what it was a couple of thousand years ago and not what it is now. The
Oh,
placement of the constellations has changed with regards to us, basically, or we have moved, with regards to the constellations.
so when is it really taking place?
Next Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Charge up.
Amazing. I love that. I'm going to read up on something about it.
It really enhances communication with the spirit parts, both ways,
Fantastic.
both directions. Yeah, because it creates somewhat of a communication portal supposedly, so that communication is easy because everything is lined up. There's no interference because there's no offset.
Amazing.
I know nothing about Lionsgate, but there's a teacher that I had once. His name's Gary Bennell. He wrote a few books on accessing Akashic records, but in his visualizations, the entranceway to the Akashic records was always guarded on either side by two large lions sitting on pedestals. And so I'm sure that that's somehow going to come back and weave into things as everything
Right.
always does.
It does.
So anyway, throw that out.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. I remember in the children's books, Narnia, I used to just love that character Aslan so much. Such a powerful figure. Okay, I'll get into it then.
Cheerful is high.
Is there anything? Yeah. Hey, Liz, how you doing?
Good. I joined a bit late, but I'm here now.
No, I started a bit early. Just because I was so proud of my earbuds. Oh, here we go. Sorry.
We have 3 Hayfords. Do you guys have 3 Hayfords?
I can see 2.
I see 3, but
I see 3.
yep, it's all right. If he can support that many people coming in at one time, then more power to him. And thanks
He's
for muting him.
bringing all his counterparts to the multi-dimensional session.
Maybe he has multiple devices on it.
Greetings, this is Zariyah from the Orion civilization. We are so pleased to meet with you today to discuss in this brief transmission the topic of the wounded healer and to offer you a perspective on how the wounded healer can be a transformative guide or archetype in this moment of deep integration on the path towards contact. The archetype of the wounded healer is one that is often misinterpreted as a being that is compromised in their ability to heal others because they themselves are wounded. However, we would draw your attention to the true message of the wounded healer is that it is the wound that was inflicted on him that gave him the power to heal others. And of course, when we are talking about healing others, we are talking about being that living embodiment, that living example of healing self. And in the demonstration of healing self, one radiates a vibrational opportunity which others can match to then heal themselves. The path of the wounded healer is to, through the process of healing, and perhaps the most poignant or crucial moment in the process of healing, is to embrace the wound and to recognize that in the infliction of a wound was the greatest gift in terms of the spiritual empowerment of the healer himself. It was the opportunity provided by the wound to learn to heal and thus embody the vibration of healing and become a living instruction to all other beings who would seek to match that vibration in the process of self-healing. Why is the wounded healer relevant on the path to contact, you might think? And we would draw your attention to the idea that as you are approaching the precipice of open contact, you are being called to incorporate many of the experiences of your counterpart selves, not just on Earth timelines, but stretching back into timelines that include various galactic civilizations and their associated experiences. And in doing this, you have the opportunity to expose yourself to all of the spectrum of experiences of your counterparts. And on that spectrum, you will indeed find the good, the bad, and the ugly. As you recognize that you have been everything on the spectrum, you have been what you would consider perpetrators, you have been what you would consider victims, you have been what you would consider neutral. And it is the realization that you have been all these things that brings you to the point of integration that readies you for open contact. You understand that the point of the splitting of source energy into all of the infinite expressions of life was to experience itself from a different point of view. And you have inhabited through the experiences of your counterparts all of the different point of views necessary to bring you to this moment of integration. How exciting. And therefore, what we would encourage you to do to make the integration process more seamless is to embrace like the wounded healer, the wound as the genesis for your expansion, the wound as your greatest gift. And in that sense, embrace all of your experiences as great gifts that have catapulted you forward on your path to expansion, that have facilitated your growth such that you have now reached this point of integration and that you are able to bring all your parts back together embraced into the whole understanding of who you really are, making you an equal for the path to contact. How exciting. We do hope that this transmission does assist you in some way when you are integrating the sometimes complicated and very wild experiences you and your counterparts have had on this journey to the new Earth, to the 6th hybrid race, and to open contact. If you do have any questions, we would be happy to take them at this time.
Hi, Zariyah, Milo here. I
Hello.
wanted to greetings. I wanted to ask a question. You ended up, with a perfect segue when you referred to the 6th hybrid race. And as I've re-listened to your transmissions during the past 8 or 9 months, there were so many references to the hybrid program, to hybridization, to this entire process. And I'm realizing that I really don't have a really cohesive understanding of exactly what the hybrid program is, how it started, where it's headed, where we are in that, and if there's some way where you could provide some sort of overview, understanding, that would be really, really helpful to me, and I suspect to others also. Thank you.
Yes. Well, you understand that the term hybrid can be used in multiple different capacities as really the branching off of all timelines or many timelines on your Earths is this idea of different stages of hybridization. And the one that you are most likely to become aware of at this time is the hybridization originally of Homo erecticus by who we will loosely term Anunnaki, as they then created an upgraded hominid, if you will. And the hybridization program and your contact with extraterrestrials continued in different directions from there. And there has been many different types of intervention to facilitate those different hybrid programs. You have hybrid programs associated with the Greys, which was the programs that they undertook with your permission to indeed ensure the survival of themselves as a civilization. And the hybridization of the Greys went in several different directions, including the Zeta Reticuli and so forth. You also have the ongoing hybridization programs that are generating civilizations like the Sasani, the Yael, the Shalanaya, the hybrid children. And you have been participating and co-creating in these very expansive experiences. You yourselves are parents, for want of a better word, at least genetically, to the hybrid children. These are your family members, and therefore the eventual reintegration of yourselves with different hybrid races, and of course the becoming of yourself into the 6th hybrid race, Homo galacticus, is really inevitable. That is why it is so crucial that you are able to respond to new information in an objective way and not be triggered by trauma narratives around things like hybridization. Because really what you are doing with meeting the hybrid children perhaps first, and then other hybrid races after that, is reconnecting with family and progressing the narrative of the evolution of Homo sapien to Homo galacticus. How exciting. Therefore, we encourage you to recognize as it is revealed to you your co-creation, your contribution to different hybrid programs and experiences, different connections with hybrid races. Most often the Greys, but certainly the hybrid children and others, that you should, if you can, come towards that from a place of empowerment, because it is recognizing that you are an empowered co-creator in this unraveling mystery of the evolution of your own species, which is the platform through which you can invite your galactic family in, and you can restore your place in galactic civilizations and as part of the new earth and the, as your Bashar has been teaching you, interstellar alliance. How exciting. Does that help?
Yes, it certainly does. And it feels like this is an incredibly exciting time in which to be born.
Yes, and to be at the precipice of integration so that you can walk the path of realizing and recognizing all your counterpart selves, of waking up every morning to new and mind-blowing discoveries and knowledge about who you are, and funneling all of that energy into positive momentum with extraterrestrial and interdimensional beings. Is there really anywhere else you would rather be?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You are so welcome. Happy
Zariyah.
hybridizing. Hello.
Hello, I have questions about tarot reading. I like to understand what's going on in the reading in terms of guidance. Was it guided
Yes.
by the tarot reader, spiritual guide, or is it by the other person's guidance?
You understand that the cards, the major arcana, do represent the major archetypes of the human psyche and experience. You have in the cards a description of the major archetypes through which a being can cycle as a path towards initiation. And if you reach the final major arcana card, what you find is that you can return back to the beginning. And as your poet has previously said, you can know it for the first time. The idea of reading the cards is that the cards are showing you a map, in a sense, of the archetypes that the individual you are reading is working with. And then you use your skills of, you might consider it psychic ability, we would also consider it telepathy, to connect with how the person who is seeking the guidance is experiencing those archetypes, and if they are able to move through the lessons of the archetypes sufficient that they can progress with their initiation. The cards do have many symbols of Gnostic knowledge and many ideas from Gnostic wisdom embedded within them that are speaking to you about the particular archetype that any person is working with. And if you can tune into the experience of the person, guided by the knowledge that you have of that archetype, you are able to help them to connect with the wisdom that their higher self is trying to offer them. In the very highest sense, a tarot reader is a type of translator that can access through their intuition and telepathy the experience that someone else is having and funnel that through the knowledge they have of the cards that are being laid out before them. And that can provide insight and wisdom for any seeker on their journey. Does that help?
Thank you. And how can I be like the most helpful reader for someone at a specific point in time?
You can trust your abilities as a gifted seer, as someone who is able to tune in to non-physical entities and energies and allow them to communicate with you and through you. The more you are able to trust in that ability, the more you will allow those gifts to flow from you, and the more you will benefit those in front of you who are seeking your assistance and guidance on the path. Trust. Trust what you have. Does that help?
Thank you. Thanks very much.
You are so welcome.
Hello, Zariyah. This is Jenny.
Hello.
Lately, I've been trying to work out the things I learned from Seth compared with what we're doing with raising our vibration to the fourth and fifth dimensions in this life.
Yes.
Seth said that Jane Roberts and Rob Butts were on their last lives on Earth, and they would not be reincarnating here again. So apparently they had fulfilled the lessons they had set for themselves for their earthly experiences. And so we think we have an afterlife in which we have a spiritual existence. And all of us who are Seth readers probably think that we're working to be the best person we can and learn all of our lessons so that when we eventually we will phase out of the physical incarnations. And I was wondering, how does our quest for raising our vibration to fourth and fifth dimensions affect our afterlife choices, our afterlife destination? And secondly, do you die and you Orion people die and have an afterlife too?
Yes, there is quite a bit to unpack there. We will begin with the idea perhaps of an afterlife, and then we will go through the questions that way. The idea of an afterlife is very much associated with the third dimensional ideas about time. You understand that there is no before and there is no after. There is no destination. It is always here and it is always now. The reason that we are reiterating that point is because you are now capable of absorbing that information in the fourth and fifth dimension. As you were in the third dimension, it did not necessarily serve you to imagine that everything was here and now, because it interrupted your idea of linear time. And the idea of linear time is a powerful tool to use in the third dimension for the unfolding of the arc of a story, if you understand. The idea that you are moving through Earth incarnations towards some type of completion is really associated with types of religiosity which have served humanity very well. And you will find this also in many Buddhist teachings on your planet, that there is cycles that you can then cycle out of physical incarnations. And what this is really representing is the idea that you have both physical and non-physical experiences, all in this now moment, all unfolding at the same time. The idea that on this timeline now, you will one day not necessarily be in physical form is very hard to comprehend, but we will have you understand that you are already in non-physical. The greatest part of you is already in non-physical. It is just a component of you that is having this physical experience in this timeline now. And therefore, it's not the idea that you, as your physical self, will graduate to non-physical and won't ever incarnate in physical again. You are already graduated, if you would like to see it that way, to non-physical. And you have extended part of yourself onto this timeline now to have a physical experience. And you have chosen to do that, not because it is something you need to push through to get to an afterlife. You have chosen to do it because it is the most exciting thing you could possibly do in this now moment. And that if you can embrace that reality, you will really recognize that heaven and an afterlife is where you are at any given time. It is the experience of your non-physical self in the fifth dimension, and it can be the experience of your physical self in the fourth dimension. The second thing we will address is that the act of channeling is always a co-creation between some aspect of non-physical, be it a non-physical being, a person's own higher mind, a tapping into a type of consciousness, and the personality mind of the physical being who is doing the channeling. There is a translation mechanism that is always happening, and the translation is only as good as the physical being can interpret the energy that is being directed or communicated to them, if you understand. And that is why we encourage you all to become channels of your own higher self, because in that sense, as you become a channel for your own higher self, you eliminate the middleman, the middle management. You quiet the noise, the distortion, or the disruption that may be present from pulling the information relevant to you through a channel that is not you, if you understand. And in that sense, as you grow in confidence with these concepts, you will more and more be able to access this knowledge just through your own higher self. And you will notice that there isn't a gap, there isn't any discrepancies, there isn't any distortions. It is as clear to you as a thought in your own head. Does that help?
Yes. So what are we supposed to think about the afterlife? Do we have that all wrong?
It's not that you have it all wrong. It's that it is perhaps a misperception that you are not already there and you are also not already here. The idea is that whatever you would consider after is happening now. The distinction is that there is a component of you that is non-physical, that is what already in what you might consider a quote unquote afterlife. Your non-physical experience is happening now. You just need to trust and allow the evidence of that to come through you and to you, as it is always so wanting to commune with you. In the same way you believe you are having a physical experience now, we will tell you you can find the evidence that you are also having a non-physical experience now if you allow yourself to open up to it. And it is in the recognition that your non-physical experience is in fact the dominant driver of your physical experience, that you can collapse ideas about a linear time towards an afterlife, because you recognize that it is all part of the same web and fabric that is unfolding in this now moment, and that you can tap into in any now moment that you choose. Does that help?
Thank
You
you.
are the
Yes, thank you.
afterlife.
We are, huh?
Yes,
It's hard to imagine. Thank you.
it is only as hard as you allow it
Yes.
to be.
Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Hello, Zariyah.
Hello.
Hi. So I recently spent a few months traveling in Thailand, and
Yes.
I'd like to ask if I could receive any clarity on my time I spent there in Thailand, what purpose the journey served for me, and if there's any significance to that location specifically for me.
Yes, well, you will understand that that region that you would recognize as Southeast Asia does have very ancient lineages of communication with non-physical beings. You do have some of the most ancient temples and structures available to you on your physical plane that you can in fact visit, that you can in fact recognize as portals to different timelines and to different communications and knowledge schools from extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional beings. In Thailand specifically, there is what you might consider an uncorrupted lineage. There has been a certain undercurrent of sovereignty in that region, the kingdom, if you will, of Thailand, and the idea that that sovereignty has protected a current of spiritual knowledge that stretches back all the way to Lemuria. There certainly is much of that knowledge stored in the temples of surrounding areas, such as Angkor Wat. If you are drawn towards that area, it is a very fertile environment for reconnecting with that ancient knowledge that is some of the threads of Lemuria, that is a deep connection with the natural environment, a deep understanding of the power of shamanic practices as they are connected to elemental forces. You see, there are different indigenous traditions that have pathways to the stars. Many of them are shamanic and would have their pathways laid out through connection with elemental forces and nature. Others are more focused on the night sky. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Hi, Zariyah.
Hello.
First of all, excuse me, thank you so much for your talk about the wounded healer. It's really relevant for me at this point. So thank you so much. I got a lot out of it.
Thank you for attracting yourself to the transmission.
Nice to meet you here. So during the transmission, I got kind of a hit that I have a counterpart in Orion, in the Orion system, and I've been channeling what I believe to be my higher self. And so my original question, it was just to see if I could get a little more information about, your civilization, the Orion civilization, and a little information about my counterpart, so that when I go to connect and channel, I'd like to try to channel that counterpart. But then your response to Jenny a minute ago made me kind of wonder, does it really, would I get a different response from my Orion counterpart than I would from my higher self, who I'm already connecting with? And so maybe if you could just speak to that idea of us reaching out to different counterparts that we have, in addition to maybe giving me a few pointers, so that when I reach out to my Orion counterpart, I can have something a little to latch onto.
Yes, well, indeed, we do say that many of you that are attracted to this information in particular have not just one Orion counterpart, but often have many Orion counterparts from different epochs in that civilization. The Orion civilization is so ancient, and the knowledge of the Orion transcendence is so transformative that it is really something you can lean into in these times of transformation. The experiences that your counterparts have had on Orion form a diamond of knowledge that is like a multi-dimensional crystal that can reflect back to you relevant understandings as you move through this segment of your timeline. The idea that you are channeling your higher self, we would like to address, because in the initial stages of channeling, it may be the case that you are practicing the connection with your higher self and practicing it with greater and greater clarity. And it is well that you should do that, because as you do that, your higher self becomes more and more accessible to you. And it is through the higher self that you channel information from other beings or indeed counterpart experiences. And therefore, part of the steps to being an open channel, if you will, is to first connect with your own higher self. And through solidifying that connection or making clear that connection, you are then able to distinguish between the vibrational resonance of your higher self and the different vibrational resonance of other beings that maybe you have agreed to channel into this time-space reality, or indeed your counterpart experiences. The other reason that it is good to connect with your higher self is it is through that communication with your higher self that you can really integrate your counterpart experiences. You can experience what your counterparts have or indeed are experiencing. And it is from that that you bring the richness of all your counterpart experiences into this now moment. And in a sense, that is how you become your multidimensional self. That is how you become your whole multidimensional self, by practicing and being able to access the experiences of your counterparts. In many circles of spiritual knowledge, this is often called the Akashic records. And indeed, there is some overlap. Although the Akashic records form more of the fabric of consciousness of everything that has ever happened through all of existence, and the experience of your counterparts are more or less relevant to you specifically. Not that Akashic records are not, but that your counterpart experiences have the ability, if you can develop your channeling ability, to have resonance at exactly the moment that they are relevant for you to have resonance. And what you can achieve then through being able to draw on them is clarity, richness, fulfillment in the now moment. If you can imagine that you are starting to walk the path of open contact, and that as you move through, we will describe it as a tunnel, that timeline, that path, what you have is so many energies of other timelines around you that could knock you off the path. But if you can access through your higher mind the experiences of your Orion counterparts that know how to maintain balance amid chaos, that know how to maintain light amidst the illusion of darkness, you have a powerful tool to steady you as you move down the tunnel or the timeline of open contact. How exciting. Does that help?
It helps a lot. It's very exciting. Can I ask one more quick?
Yes, indeed.
I feel like some of the information that I get from my higher self can be kind of vague. Do you have any tips for getting more deep or specific information?
Yes, if you can trust what you get initially, you will see that it will expand. The skill that you are learning in tuning in to what you would consider vague is the ability to discern the subtlety of vibration, and the different vibrational frequency ranges are indeed subtle in their distinctions at the higher bracket level. If you were to compare, for example, 40,000 cycles per second to 220,000 cycles per second, the distinction in vibrational frequency range is very marked, and you can sense it almost immediately. But if you were to consider 196,000 cycles per second and 197,000 cycles per second, the distinction is very slight. It is very subtle, but it is nevertheless enormously important that you are able to discern between two very closely aligned vibrational frequency ranges. And why that is important is then you are able to start to discern the difference between vibrational frequency of counterpart beings, extraterrestrials, extra-dimensionals, and so on. So the art of learning to discern subtle vibration can feel vague at first, but if you allow yourself to amplify, in a sense, the feeling of the vibration, however distant, however abstract, however vague, you will become better at discerning the vibrational frequency details, and then you will achieve what you would consider greater clarity or accuracy in that sense. Does that help?
It helps on so many levels. Very exciting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. How exciting.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So as you were mentioning that we have been abusers, we have been perpetrators, we have been victim in any lifetime. So in the current life, on the earth level, earth dimension, people who experience suffering, so-called suffering, trauma, rape, abuse, is it like in some lifetime they had been the perpetrator, they had been the abuser, and now it's like an experience they have like called for, is it?
Not so much in the sense that you are describing it, because you are describing it in such a way that the universe would be punitive, and that is never the case. There is, again, the thread of religious doctrines or ideas that are embedded in descriptions of that nature. It is very difficult for compassionate hearted human beings on an upward frequency vibrational pathway to understand that beings agree to all sorts of circumstances for their own personal expansion and growth. However, the nature of reality is that in your expansion, the soul does desire to experience myriad vibrational frequency ranges on the spectrum, on the path to being free to choose the vibrational frequency range that you prefer. And therefore, all of those experiences are gifts that bring you to this now moment where you have a strong sense of the vibrational frequency range that you prefer. And you would not have that strong sense of that had you not had all of these experiences that you have. We will describe them as played out in many of your counterpart lives. The idea is not that you should ever want to become indifferent to the experiences of other beings, but allow yourself to acknowledge that those experiences are serving the preference of their higher selves to expand in ways that you may not understand, that you may not be able to comprehend. Every being has their path, and every being is working their way back to source, and every being is figuring out how to recognize the source inside of themselves. And the choices that they make on those paths are serving them in that regard in ways that may not be immediately obvious to anybody casting a critical eye over their experience. And in that sense, what we would ask you to recognize is that the only responsibility you have to your counterpart selves and their experiences is to have gratitude, to have appreciation for the experiences that their courageous souls set out to have, and from the clarity that it is given you in this now moment as you integrate those experiences and move forward to the vibrational frequency range that you prefer. How exciting. Does that help?
It does help. At the same time, there is one more question. Can I add that?
Yes.
So, what about like recently in India, there was this trainee doctor being raped as she was on duty and she was killed. So where is her learning and she was raped and killed. So
We
that just
will.
what is her learning? I mean, she doesn't have, yeah, okay, there's an afterlife, but can you please speak on that?
Sorry, we lost your last sentence.
What about somebody getting raped and then being killed?
Yes, you understand that if you look at or if you could ever look at the infinite timelines that have unfolded in what you would consider just your Earth, never mind your galactic timelines and different civilizations, there is much appetite for actions that you would consider out of alignment or in a low vibrational frequency range, actions that you would consider atrocities or things of that nature. And it is not ever going to be the case that if you ruminate on them, that you can transform them from that perspective, because sovereign beings will choose in their experience to match a reality that serves them in ways that you could perhaps not imagine. The idea of someone who suffers what you would consider an atrocity is not something that we recommend that you become cold to. It is part of your human heart that you feel so much compassion for that being, because you understand that the emotional experience of that being in that moment may have been very challenging. But what we would ask you to recognize is that there are more there is more going on than just the physical experience of that being in that moment, that you are infinite. Really and truly, your higher self is the greatest component of yourself. And the higher selves of beings who experience challenges in that way is the greatest component of themselves. And their higher self is powerful enough, is compassionate enough, is capable enough of absorbing any experience that any being has in physical and growing through that experience into such an expansive state that they will be able to incorporate that eventually as an expression of the experience of source energy, in the sense that expansion includes all things, and you are free in the inclusion of all things to choose what you prefer without judgment or prejudice, into the expansion of more of who you really are. And so is every sovereign being that has ever and will ever always exist. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you very much.
You are so welcome. We would add the integration of these experiences. The idea that you can integrate this knowledge is one of the illusions that you are also in the process of collapsing. The illusions such as the idea that time is linear, that you are mortal, that you are unidimensional, and that there is good and evil that needs to be resisted or overcome. It is another of those illusions that you are grappling with. So take it easy on yourself. It's a complicated time.
Hi, Zariyah.
Hello.
I just marveling at the synchronicities that are coming through in this transmission tonight, and
Yes.
definitely noticing the theme of trust that seems to be quite high here.
Yes.
Continuing along that theme, I received some information from a group consciousness that I've recently come into contact with that
Yes.
stated that there might be some information or a message coming through either to myself or to the group in this transmission. I feel like I've already received a lot of it just in other people's questions and the answers that you gave. Is there anything else that might be pursuant to that energetic scavenger hunt thread? Thank you.
One moment. Yes, for you in particular, we are connecting to other timelines where you have been a powerful channel of the energy of, they are represented in different forms. However, you have the serpent energy and the draconian energy, also that is often represented as the praying mantis energy. These are energies that are to do with the hybrid programs, to do with the evolution of humanity and the evolution of indeed the universe, if you will. And your ability to tap into those energies is something you have experienced in your counterpart lives. And it is indeed knocking at your door at this time, because now would be an opportune moment, a poignant moment for you to commence sharing your gifts in that way. The presence of the draconian energies, the praying mantis energies, are always more pronounced and are always more ready to come through during periods of significant transition. And we don't just mean the rise and fall of civilizations, we mean the ascending into different dimensions. That is when those energies seek to come through, and they are tapping on the door of your higher self. Anybody home?
Thank you so much for the non-physical pep talk. I appreciate it greatly.
You are so welcome.
Are non-physical, are hybrid children born through a womb, or are they created? Or both?
The hybrid children are created in an organic womb-like structure, although they are not necessarily carried in the gestation sense that you would consider happens with human females. There is a gestation process, but it doesn't necessarily happen inside of a physical being. Does that help? There is also, we will add, the similarity of the fusing of genetic materials. That is really what your process of creating people on your planet is. You are fusing genetic materials from different beings in a co-creative process. And then that fusion is gestating over a certain period of time to become viable. And in a sense, that is a very similar process, although the womb, as you would consider it, is not necessarily inside another being in what you might consider pregnancy. Does that help?
That's a great answer. Thank you very much.
You are so welcome.
Hello, Zariyah.
Hello.
So as we're accelerating towards open contact, I have some questions. So I heard, well, it's kind of obvious. I heard from Bashar's transmissions that we're at the end of a cycle. I've heard it from a lot of people. And I've also heard him talk about the cycle of Atlantis and how in an oversimplified way, I think that's why he said something along those lines, that the Americas as the two continents, as well as the United States in particular, are kind of like a reborn version of Atlantis, where the same split happens all over again. And this time we have the opportunity to match a higher frequency or a lower frequency, with all of them coming together so that it's blatantly obvious the consequences of whatever energy we choose to match with all the polarity that's been happening. And I'm just wondering how the rise of Atlantis again in a new form will tie in with open contact in the Americas again.
Yes, well, in a sense, the rise and fall of Atlantis, while you did have many beings in Atlantis who were practitioners of what you might consider types of magic, as you did also in the Orion civilization. Essentially, the Atlantean civilization was a third dimensional civilization. The general capabilities of the beings towards the fall of enlightenment were not such that they were able to raise their vibration sufficiently as a collective to move on to a timeline that avoided the fall. And that is what is different on this timeline now. You have in pockets raise your vibration significantly that you are now in the fourth dimension. You are pulling in those fifth dimensional energies. So in a sense, while there will be a splitting off of a timeline that does mimic the fall of Atlantis in many regards, that there are other timelines, the timeline that you are in fact on, that if you could imagine that Atlantis did not fall, but that communities within Atlantis were able to raise their vibrations such that they were able to, for want of a better word, ascend. That is what you are doing on this timeline now. There is, however, much to learn from the fall of Atlantis. They did have within their civilization technologies and capabilities. They did have understandings of the true nature of reality and extraterrestrial beings in pockets that exceeded what you have in general on your timeline now. And so where you have counterparts from that civilization, it would be an auspicious moment to draw on the knowledge of those counterparts as you move towards the enhancement of your own group's capabilities in terms of what you might consider energetic technologies and capabilities. There is much to be learned from the fall of Atlantis, and there is much mirroring of the timeline of Atlantis and the timeline that you find yourselves on. But you are not going to be overwhelmed by a great flood. You have vibrationally passed that Rubicon, if you does that.
Well,
help?
that's great news. Thank you,
Yes,
Zariyah. Yeah,
indeed.
that helps.
It's been an hour. Do you have time for one more, or?
We can take one more question.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dora. I really love the transmission. My question is, how many, so you're talking about counterparts, how many counterparts do I have roughly, and what is the proportion of galactic, earthly versus, other, and is there information that I need to receive at this time on that theme?
Would you like to make a list of your counterparts?
Just
Would
an
you
overview.
like to send them letters and emails? We are only joking. You have more counterparts than it is worth for us to share with you at this time, because if you can get your head around the infinite nature of reality, that extends past your experience of this reality into light years of other lifetimes in other galaxies, in other realities, in other paradigms. For us to count the timelines, count the counterparts that you have, would make no sense. We can list off a number. We can say 1645, 2389, 147. Does that help?
I guess my question is more around like an overview, just like in terms of, being attracted to this meetup. Does that mean, I have a large proportion of galactic counterparts versus other people who are have a larger proportion of earthly counterparts? And the reason I asked the question is more to kind of in line with your transmission, and I think it would help me just connect with them if I have like a bit of an overview.
Yes, in a sense, what we are trying to illustrate is that you have an enormous amount of counterparts, and the best way to organize the information that they are trying to share with you is to look at, as you are doing, what you are attracted to in any now moment, and consider that you are attracted there because it is resonant with you, and that you certainly have a counterpart on that timeline or in that area of experience. For example, certainly you have Orion counterparts and you have deep knowledge of the Orion light, and that is why you have been drawn to this group at this time. But there are many experiences that you are having in your reality that allow you to connect with counterparts that are very different from your Orion counterparts. They are counterparts from other galaxies. We will say, including a strong link with the Sirius civilization, and also, of course, as many beings on your planet have, strong counterpart connections with the Pleiadian civilization and the hybrid children. But you also have multiple counterpart experiences in different timelines of what you would consider your Earth in the last 13,000 year cycle and the 13,000 year cycle previous to that. And in that sense, often on one timeline, you have more than one counterpart. If we can give you an example, the channel herself has many counterparts that she was connecting with for a period of time on the World War II timeline. And she certainly found out that she was on all sides of that war. And integrating that reality was quite challenging. And in that sense, that is the point of crafting your ability to zero in, if you will, on a specific counterpart experience, because that experience has some relevant integration, relevant knowledge for you at this specific moment. And then as you have integrated that, you might find that the experience of that counterpart fades from view and another one comes in, offering you more information and serving you in your expansion as you move through what you would consider your timeline now. Does that help?
Yes. Yes, I will think about it. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Thank you,
If
Zariyah.
there, thank you. We will end the transmission now. Good day. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, my doggy is just pushing my legs around. I don't know what she's doing.
I didn't realize I had the perfect shirt on for this.
What does it say? Lasers make everything better. Well, except for Adam.
Alderon.
Oh my gosh. Oh, guys.
Lots of good stuff came out.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I was feeling like a super build-up of energy just wanting to come through there. I just felt like just trying to get the words out fast enough. I'm always trying to focus on that, but anyway.
Every counterpart was trying to come through for everybody.
Yeah.
Plus all the ET families, everything was trying to come through.
Yeah, I feel like it's just like, it really felt like that. And there was one point where I could just see like it's almost like the horizon, you know, like, and I was trying to, anyway, it's like trying to explain like all the information in that, and the language is just not there, you know. We'll get there. Practice, practice, practice.
You did great.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah, it was
Thanks so
amazing.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great session.
Thank you so much.
See you.
Thank
I
you.
mean, great day.
See you at
See
the
you.
after meeting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great.
Have a
Thank you so
beautiful
much,
day.
Ash. Bye.
See ya.